May 18, 1944, 10:30 hours. Monte, Cassino, Italy. Private Stefan Comosa, 23 years old, from Warsaw, Poland, climbs through rubble toward the summit of Monte Cassino, carrying a Polish flag folded in his pack. Around him, ruins. The 100-year-old Benedictine monastery that once crowned this mountain has been reduced to broken walls and craters by months of bombing and artillery fire, but the rubble is still deadly. German soldiers, survivors of the 1st Parachute Division, remain hidden in the ruins, firing on any Allied soldier who approaches. Comosa's unit, 12th Podolski Lancers Regiment, Polish II Corps, has been fighting for 3 days to reach this summit. They have advanced 100 yards and suffered 281 casualties. Now, at 10:30 hours on May 18th, Comosa and a handful of Polish soldiers reach the highest point of Monte Cassino's ruins. They see no Germans. The surviving defenders have withdrawn during the night, finally abandoning a position they have held for 5 months. Comosa unfolds the Polish flag, white and red, the national colors of a country that hasn't been free since 1939, when Germany and the Soviet Union invaded and partitioned Poland. He ties the flag to a broken timber. At 10:35 hours, the Polish flag rises over Monte Cassino. Below, Polish soldiers see the flag and begin singing a hymn called Rota that contains the line, "We shall never abandon our land." Many are crying. These are men who have no homeland to return to. Poland is occupied, divided between Nazi Germany and Soviet Russia. Many Polish soldiers' families are dead, imprisoned, or disappeared. They're fighting for Britain and the Allies because they have nowhere else to go, and because defeating Germany is the only way Poland might someday be free again. And now, after 4 separate battles, after American, British, New Zealand, Indian, and French colonial troops all failed, Polish soldiers have captured Monte Cassino. The Gustav Line, Germany's strongest defensive position in Italy, is broken. The road to Rome is open, but the cost of breaking the Gustav Line at Monte Cassino is staggering. 55,000 Allied casualties, killed, wounded, missing, over 5 months. 20,000 German casualties defending the position, all to capture one mountain. Military historians will later call Monte Cassino the hardest fought battle of World War II, in terms of casualties per square mile. And when survivors are asked why so many died for one mountain, the answer is simple: geography. Monte Cassino sits at the entrance to the Liri Valley, the only route through the mountains toward Rome. Whoever controls Monte Cassino controls the valley. The Allies needed the valley to advance on Rome. The Germans needed to deny the valley to stop the Allied advance. So, 75,000 men fought for 5 months on one mountain, and Monte Cassino became the symbol of the Italian campaign's grinding, attritional, bloody nature. Monte Cassino's strategic importance derives from its geography. The mountain, 100 feet tall, rising steeply from the Liri Valley floor, dominates the only practical route through central Italy toward Rome, the Gustav Line. In late 1943, German forces in Italy established the Gustav Line, a defensive position stretching 100 miles across Italy from coast to coast. The line was anchored on mountains, rivers, and other terrain features that made it extraordinarily difficult to attack. At the line's center, Monte Cassino. The mountain was the key to the entire defensive position because, 1. Observation. German observers on Monte Cassino could see the entire Liri Valley, directing artillery fire on any Allied movement. 1. Blocking position. The mountain sat adjacent to Highway 6, the main route to Rome. Allied forces couldn't use the highway while Germans held the mountain. 1. Terrain advantage. The mountain's steep slopes, rocky terrain, and limited approach routes made it nearly impossible to assault. German defensive positions on Monte Cassino included reinforced concrete bunkers carved into rock, interconnected tunnel systems, artillery positions on reverse slopes, protected from Allied fire, machine gun nests covering all approaches, extensive minefields, wire obstacles, and defending Monte Cassino, the 1st Parachute Division, elite German airborne troops commanded by General Richard Heydrich. The 1st Parachute Division was not typical Wehrmacht infantry. These were volunteers, young, fanatical, superbly trained, experienced in defensive combat. They had fought in Crete, Russia, and North Africa. They knew how to defend impossible positions. And they had orders from Field Marshal Albert Kesselring: hold Monte Cassino at all costs. If Cassino falls, we lose Italy. January 17, 1904. First Battle of Monte Cassino begins. The U.S. II Corps, commanded by Major General Jeffrey Keyes, attacks toward Monte Cassino from the south. The attack follows standard American doctrine. Phase 1, artillery preparation, days of bombardment to suppress German defenses. Phase 2, infantry assault, multiple divisions attacking to overwhelm defenders. Phase 3, exploitation, once breakthrough achieved, commit armor to exploit. But Monte Cassino's terrain makes this doctrine impossible to execute. Problem 1. Artillery effectiveness, limited German positions are dug into solid rock. Artillery bombardment creates noise and dust, but doesn't destroy bunkers. Problem 2. Infantry must attack uphill. Advancing uphill under fire against prepared defenses produces catastrophic casualties. Problem 3. No armor exploitation possible. The terrain is too steep and rocky for tanks. Only infantry can advance. The U.S. 34th Infantry Division leads the assault. Private First Class Robert True, 20 years old, from Iowa, is part of the first wave attacking Monte Cassino's lower slopes. His account of January 24, 1904. We advanced at dawn. The Germans let us climb 200 yards before opening fire. Then it was hell. Machine guns from bunkers we couldn't see. Mortars dropping on our positions. Artillery from reverse slopes we couldn't reach. We tried to advance, men were cut down. We tried to retreat, men were killed running back. We just laid there in the rocks, pinned down, getting shot at for 8 hours. By evening, my company had 40% casualties and we'd advanced maybe 50 yards. This pattern continues for 3 weeks. The Americans attack daily. They suffer heavy casualties. They gain minimal ground, measuring progress in yards, not miles. By February 11th, the U.S. II Corps has suffered 2,200 casualties and failed to capture Monte Cassino. The attack is called off. Lesson learned: direct assault on Monte Cassino is suicidal. Next approach: if we can't take the mountain by assault, maybe we can destroy the defenders' positions. This reasoning leads to one of the war's most controversial decisions: bombing the monastery. February 15, 1944. Allied commanders debate, should we bomb the Monte Cassino monastery? The monastery, built in 529 AD by Saint Benedict, is one of Christianity's most sacred sites. It sits on Monte Cassino's summit, a massive stone structure visible for miles. Arguments for bombing. The Germans are using the monastery for observation and defensive positions. If we destroy it, we eliminate their command center. Arguments against bombing. Intelligence reports indicate Germans are not using the monastery. They have deliberately avoided occupying it to preserve its cultural value. If we bomb it, we destroy a priceless cultural site for no military gain. Intelligence assessment. Allied intelligence officers interview Italian civilians and analyze reconnaissance photos. Conclusion: Germans are not occupying the monastery itself, though they have positions nearby. But Allied field commanders don't believe the intelligence. They see German observers directing fire from the mountain and assume those observers must be in the monastery. They're wrong. German observers are in positions adjacent to the monastery, not inside it. But field commander's conviction overrides intelligence assessment. On February 15th, the decision is made: bomb the monastery. The bombing. 0945 hours, February 15, 1904. 229 American B-17, B-25, and B-26 bombers attack Monte Cassino Monastery. They drop 1,150 tons of bombs, high explosives, and incendiaries. The monastery, stone walls several feet thick, partially survives the bombing but is reduced to ruins. Civilian refugees sheltering inside, approximately 230 people, are killed. The few Italian monks who remained, having refused to evacuate, are killed. The bombing is a propaganda disaster. Germans immediately publicize photos of the destroyed monastery, claiming Americans are destroyers of Christian civilization. And the bombing backfires militarily. Before the bombing, Germans didn't occupy the monastery, respecting its cultural value. After the bombing, Germans occupy the monastery ruins, which now provide excellent defensive positions, better than the intact structure would have. The bombing made Monte Cassino harder to capture, not easier. February 15th to 18th, 1904. New Zealand and Indian troops attack Monte Cassino immediately after the bombing. They assume German defenses will be destroyed. Instead, they encounter German paratroopers occupying the ruins, now better protected than before. The attack fails with 2,000 casualties. Second Battle of Monte Cassino ends in failure, March 15th, 1904. Third Battle of Monte Cassino begins. Allied commanders try a new approach. Massive bombardment followed by coordinated assault. The plan? Phase 1, aerial bombardment, heavier than February's bombing. Phase 2, artillery bombardment. Every available gun fires on German positions. Phase 3, infantry assault. New Zealand 2nd Division and Indian 4th Division attack from multiple directions simultaneously. March 15th, 08:30 hours. The bombardment begins. 500-plus Allied aircraft drop 1,000 tons of bombs on Monte Cassino town and monastery. 1,000-plus artillery pieces fire on German positions, the heaviest artillery concentration since World War I. The bombardment creates an apocalyptic scene. The town of Cassino, at the mountain's base, is reduced to rubble. Dust and smoke obscure everything. The noise is deafening. Continuous explosions for hours, Allied commanders believe nothing could survive this bombardment. March 15th, 1400 hours. New Zealand and Indian troops attack. They discover 1. German paratroopers survived. The bombardment killed some Germans, but most survived in underground bunkers. 1. The rubble makes defense easier. The destroyed buildings create obstacles that slow attackers and provide cover for defenders. 1. German morale remains high. Despite the bombardment, German paratroopers fight with determination. Private Raymond Coates, New Zealand Infantry, describes the fighting. We entered the town expecting to find dead Germans and easy progress. Instead, we found Germans firing from every pile of rubble. Every shattered building was a fortress. Every street was a kill zone. We'd fight for one building all day, 10-15 casualties, finally clear it, then Germans would counterattack at night and retake it. We'd have to fight for the same building again the next day. The battle degenerates into urban combat, fighting house to house, room to room, in destroyed buildings. Progress is measured in individual buildings. We captured the Continental Hotel on March 17th, lost it on March 18th, recaptured it March 19th, March 23rd, 1904. Third Battle of Monte Cassino is suspended after 8 days of fighting. Casualties: New Zealand 100, Indian 3,000, German 1,000. Result: Allied forces captured most of Cassino town, but failed to capture the monastery on the mountain. The German defensive line holds. By May 1904, Allied commanders recognize that frontal assault on Monte Cassino alone will never succeed. New plan: massive offensive along the entire Gustav Line, not just at Cassino, but at multiple points simultaneously. Operation Diadem. British 8th Army attacks on the Adriatic coast. French Expeditionary Corps attacks in the mountains west of Cassino. US 2 Corps attacks toward Anzio. Polish 2 Corps attacks Monte Cassino. The theory: if Germans must defend everywhere simultaneously, they can't concentrate forces at Monte Cassino. Polish 2 Corps, commanded by General Władysław Anders, himself a former Soviet prisoner who escaped Soviet captivity when Germany invaded USSR. The corps consisted of Polish soldiers who'd escaped occupied Poland. Some fled to France in 1939, then to Britain after France fell. Some were Polish prisoners in Soviet camps, released when USSR joined Allies. Some were Polish civilians in Soviet territories who volunteered when allowed to leave. They had no homeland to return to. Poland was occupied by both Germany and USSR. They fought because defeating Germany was the only hope for eventual Polish freedom. May 11 to 12, 1904. Operation Diadem begins with massive artillery bombardment along entire Gustav Line. Polish 2 Corps attacks Monte Cassino from the north. Different approach than previous assaults, attempting to bypass the strongest German positions. May 12 to 17. 5 days of desperate fighting. Polish troops advance slowly. 100-200 yards per day, suffering heavy casualties. But this time, the German defense is weakening. The French breakthrough in the mountains west of Cassino threatens German supply lines. German commanders realize Monte Cassino may be outflanked, captured not by frontal assault, but by maneuver elsewhere. May 17 to 18th, night. German 1st Parachute Division receives orders, withdraw from Monte Cassino. The position, held for 5 months against 4 major assaults, is abandoned. Not because Germans were defeated at Cassino itself, but because the broader offensive threatened to surround them. May 18, 1904, morning. Polish patrols advance cautiously, expecting German resistance. Instead, they find abandoned positions. At 10:30 hours, Polish troops reach the monastery summit and raise the Polish flag. After 4 battles, after 55,000 Allied casualties, Monte Cassino finally falls. Monte Cassino's capture opened the Liri Valley, allowing Allied forces to advance toward Rome. On June 4, 1904, Rome fell to the Allies, the first Axis capital captured. 2 days later, D-Day landings in Normandy overshadowed the Italian campaign entirely. But for the soldiers who fought at Cassino, the victory came at enormous cost. Allied casualties, all 4 battles. Americans, 400, British and Commonwealth, 4,000. New Zealanders, 1,600, Indians, 3,000, French and colonial, 7,000, Poles, 4,000. Total, approximately 55,000 casualties. German casualties, approximately 20,000 casualty rate per square mile. Monte Cassino had the highest casualty density of any Western Front battle, approximately 1,000 casualties per square mile of contested terrain. The monastery. The 100-year-old monastery was destroyed, not by Germans, who never occupied it initially, but by Allied bombing. After the war, the monastery was rebuilt using original plans, reconstruction completed in 1964. Today, Monte Cassino Monastery stands as a memorial to the battle, containing a cemetery with 1,072 Commonwealth graves and a Polish military cemetery with 1-52 graves. Private Stefan Komosa survived the war. He remained in Britain after the war, unable to return to Poland, which became a Soviet satellite state. He worked in a factory in Scotland, never married, and maintained contact with fellow Polish veterans through veteran associations. In 1984, 40 years after the battle, Komosa returned to Monte Cassino for a commemoration ceremony. He was interviewed by a journalist. "Why did you fight so hard for Monte Cassino?" Komosa's response, "We had no country. Poland was occupied, half by Germans, half by Soviets. We had no homes to return to. Many of our families were dead or in camps. We fought because it was all we could do. Fighting Germans meant maybe, someday, Poland would be free again." Monte Cassino was just one mountain. But for us, it represented everything. Our country, our honor, our hope. So we fought for it like it was Poland itself. And when we planted that flag on May 18th, for a moment, we had a country again, even if it was just a ruined monastery on an Italian mountain. Monte Cassino remains controversial for several reasons. 1. The bombing decision. Was bombing the monastery justified? Allied argument. We believe Germans were using it. In war, you must act on available information, even if incomplete. Critics' argument. Intelligence said Germans weren't in the monastery. The bombing was unnecessary and counterproductive. It destroyed a priceless cultural site and made the military situation worse. Modern consensus. The bombing was a mistake, based on field commanders' incorrect assumptions, overriding accurate intelligence. 1. The tactical approach. Was frontal assault on Monte Cassino the right strategy? Allied argument. Monte Cassino blocked the only route to Rome. It had to be captured. Critics' argument. The Allies could have bypassed Cassino, advancing through the mountains on either side. The obsession with capturing Cassino caused unnecessary casualties. Modern analysis. The May 1944 offensive, Operation Diadem, proved that threatening multiple points simultaneously was more effective than focusing on Cassino alone. That approach should have been tried earlier. Chapter 1. The casualties. Were 55,000 casualties justified for one mountain? Allied argument. Capturing Monte Cassino opened the route to Rome and broke the Gustav Line. Strategic objectives worth the cost. Critics' argument: Rome had no strategic value. It was a political and psychological objective, not a military one. 55,000 casualties for political symbolism is hard to justify. This debate continues among military historians. January to May 1904. 4 battles, 5 months, 55,000 Allied casualties, 20,000 German casualties, 1 mountain. Monte Cassino became the symbol of the Italian campaign's nature. Grinding, attritional, bloody warfare, where terrain and determined defenders made every mile cost thousands of lives. The Americans tried and failed. The British and New Zealanders tried and failed. The Indians tried and failed. The Poles succeeded, not because they were better soldiers, but because by the time they attacked, German forces were finally weakening under accumulated pressure, and because Polish soldiers fought with a desperation born from having no homeland and nothing to lose. These stories of cultural destruction, tactical mistakes, and soldiers who fought for a country that no longer existed deserve to be remembered. Subscribe so they never fade into history. Next time, 76 hours, 5,000 Marines, 1,000 yards of reef. The landing that changed amphibious doctrine forever.